Hi, I'm Randy Wooden, and welcome to another in our Edge Library series. This time we'll talk about military transition and the topic that comes up dealing with networking and how do I network on the outside. So we'll talk about that a little bit, and it's a challenge. It really is, and there's some things thanks to the internet that allow you some tools and avenues to pursue that way. Ultimately, it's just like it is in private sector. Networking is done best and most thoroughly, ultimately, when you're able to speak face to face or via telephone. The third and least effective level, but it's a start anyway, is online connection. So let's begin to look at networking. First of all, a quick definition: networking and informational interviewing. They're usually intertwined and they're very similar. And actually, I'd argue that you probably can do both at the same time. Just understand, informational interviewing would be very much like if the first time you were home on leave, let's say, from service, and one of your family members took you aside and said, "What's it like?" You probably were asked that. And the information you would provide would be essentially the same type of information that an informational interview might derive if that person were to ask you those same sorts of questions. What you're trying to do with informational interviewing is to get a better idea of what life is like in that role, and to understand what sort of income is realistic, job responsibilities, growth potential, any barriers or hurdles that you might have to cross to gain entry into that field. Maybe it's certifications or education or just experience. So it could be any number of things. So informational interviewing, that's really what that's about. Networking is very similar, to me anyway. Networking takes that information and says, okay, I need to get in contact now with other people. So networking is building a network of contacts. Informational interviewing can mean that same thing, but also piggybacks that with learning about that particular individual, what they do for a living, how they got into it, and that sort of thing. So it's kind of gaining a little more insight, the informational interview side is. So how do you go about networking? Well, let's talk briefly about the internet side of this thing. LinkedIn, and depending on your status in the military, you may or may not have much access to that. So assuming that you do have some access to it, I would look to join groups with similar interests, whether it's the branch of the military. There may even be what I would call alumni groups, either from colleges or from branches of the service. You can also do keyword searches, and you're able to find people who have served in the military, who have listed that service in their profile page, and ask to connect with them and tell them why you're doing it. You're transitioning. You want to be networked with other people who have already made that transition. I will tell you now, I have not served in the military, but what I can tell you is that as a college graduate, if somebody approached me in a professional way and said, look, we shared the same school, I know you graduated some time ago and you don't know me, but I would appreciate it if I could pick your brain for a couple of minutes. I really could use some help trying to make a transition out from college into the workforce. You're no different transitioning from the military. It's essentially a big college is what it is. It's a big fraternity. You know that as well as I do. You've got people that'll give up their life for you in the military. Once they get out, doesn't mean they necessarily don't want anything to do with you. Just means they've gone their separate ways. But if you approach them and ask them for some help, tell them why you're approaching them, most of the time, not always, but most of the time, people want to be of some help, and so they are generally approachable. So I definitely would look to use LinkedIn as probably your main tool. Facebook, lesser so. That's more social. But still, you can go on there and find groups that are comprised of people of similar interests, similar backgrounds. So again, don't be afraid to use it for job hunting and not just for the social side of it. When it comes to other aspects of networking, people hire and people do business with people they know and trust, for the most part. So I would look to tap into the companies that appear at job fairs. For instance, that would be one of them. I'd want to get to know hiring officials there and begin to network. In fact, if I can use LinkedIn, then go in and find out other employees within that same organization. That would be something I'd do. I might also go back to my hometown, my folks, my relatives, my high school friends, people that I knew perhaps before the military, and everybody's working somewhere, theoretically. So why not tap into them, talk to them a little bit about what they do, and tell them, look, I'm making some changes, leaving the military, and I'm kind of at a fork in the road. I've got some skills, I think, but you know what? This first transition is going to be probably kind of tough in a tight economy. I really could use some help. And I think in terms of putting together that list of people that make sense to talk with, I think that should help you a little bit. Deal with people who know you and or share something in common with you. That would probably be the best advice. Then looking down the road, once you've landed a position, it may not be the job, it might be a job. But you can continue to network, and once you've made that leap into the private sector, that next private sector job probably will come easier than the first one. So you're really at the toughest point right now. So just stay with it, work the plan, it'll work. It has worked in the past. Thanks for watching. I'm Randy Wooden, and that'll wrap up this segment on the Edge Library series. We're talking military now and transitioning and using a network to help you go from military to civilian life. Thanks for watching.